Woohoo! Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Hello again. My name is Heather, and I am the host of Sunshine and Power Cuts. This week, I'm bringing to you a week of live streams celebrating connections. And I just had a chat with Paul Chomo from the Varmints podcast, and we're getting straight into it, hanging out on the podcasting couch with Chris Carlson.
Hey, that's me.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Chris. We've had a chat. We're both part of the Podcastage Discord community. That's how I found you. And you also reached out to me, sent me an email and said, would I like to be a guest on your show? And it turned out that I got to talk to you on New Year's Day, my time, which was awesome.
Right. Yeah, I listened to the show and I loved it. One of the big things that I look for is when I'm trying to find shows to have on, I look for two things, and that's I look for unique and I look for quality. There are, and I don't like to necessarily talk bad about a genre per se, but there's a million video game podcasts. There's a million movie podcasts, and so I think it's kind of hard to stand out from the herd in that, and the ones that have done that are a bit above my pay grade right now. And so I look for these unique niche shows that are really interesting, and then I look for shows that have quality audio, quality production, because that's something that I take really seriously, because I know when I'm listening to shows, I turn them off if they don't sound great, and I might be missing out on some great stuff. I don't know, but so those are the two things I look for, and I found it. And so I reached out and wanted to have you on, and I thought that we had a great conversation, a great time.
I just want to say that's an incredible honor to be a part of that quality that you look for. So thank you so much for that compliment. That's amazing. Yeah, before we chatted too, I looked up what you did and I listened to a couple of back episodes that you'd done to see kind of how the conversation flowed there. And I just loved the way that you sort of engaged the person you were talking with and the genuine interest you had in them and their story. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about how that sort of came about, because you've got on your about page, you've got a little description that I think is really, really awesome.
Yeah, so the show came about, actually. It's kind of interesting. I started out and it's mostly scrubbed from the internet at this point, but I started out doing a podcast about the news with vaping, and I kind of mixed that in with politics. There's two things that I'm really passionate about. Vaping got me off of cigarettes. I smoked like a pack a day for 3 years, and I was able to quit. And then the amount of like time and research that went into that, I could not sustain anymore. And so, but I still wanted to podcast. And so what I decided to do is I wanted to have a show where I could have conversations with all the people that I listen to regularly. And so I started this show. And when I in the military, I got the opportunity to meet just a ton of really unique people and hear a lot of unique stories. And so I wanted to sort of parlay that experience into podcasting. And it's a unique opportunity that I think that we're afforded in this day and age, where someone like you and I can have a conversation on opposite ends of the world and completely seamlessly, without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. And so what I wanted to do was kind of have that, I'm a big fan of the WTFs and the Joe Rogan podcast and things like that. But I didn't find a lot of spaces for, I guess, the sort of smaller creators out there. And so I wanted to kind of be that space where you could have these shows where listeners could get introduced to content that they might not have otherwise found. And kind of the unique opportunities with this show is that we are able to sort of leverage every show's audience against each other in a way where we're able to pull everybody up. And so it's one part like selfish. I get to have conversations with people and I really enjoy doing that. And then it's one part like a promotional kind of thing and a networking kind of thing where everybody gets to kind of, I guess, sort of have like this I don't know, I get I'm at a loss for the word for it, but just like a little network of people who are able to talk to each other and grow their audiences from each other as the show progresses.
Yeah, it is really interesting because we all have different stories and we have different experiences, and hearing that from other people, sharing that and finding the commonalities like we talked about in Elisa's chat in the first stream for the summit, that's incredible.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of unique people now. We're about 44 episodes in at this point, a little over a year into the show, and the range of people that I've got to talk to has been incredible. Where we've gone into really lighthearted stuff. Like I talked to a couple kids. I say kids, they're like 18. But a couple kids doing like a video game podcast, and they were trying to figure things out. And I got a chance to chat with them for a little bit, and they made me, feel really old, which I'm not. And that's why it hurts so much, because I'm not that old. I'm 25 years old. That's not old, but the way that these kids were talking about the things that I was talking about, I was like, I remember when we were playing Game Boys and PlayStations, and they were like, oh, we didn't play. I'm like, oh, you're hurting my heart. But I've gotten the chance to speak to people like that who I probably would have never otherwise spoken to. And then I've gotten the opportunity to have like some more serious conversations where we've gotten into, I've had the opportunity to have people on who do political shows and things that I really disagree with. And we've been able to have a civil conversation for, we talked for about 2 hours about,
Awesome.
about things that we disagreed with, as far as the American healthcare system goes and things like that. And then all the way down to some really serious topics. I had an author on the show who wrote a book about his pornography addiction and how it had ended up getting him in jail. And so just like the range of topics that I've been able to cover with this show, and the amount of different types of people that I've been able to speak with, I really have enjoyed, and I think that it's really enhanced my understanding of the world around us, and some of the voices that we don't always hear.
Yeah. So you're passionate about that and you're seeking out these stories.
Yes, I am. Well, a few times I've gotten lucky enough where, and it is a major compliment anytime that somebody reaches out to me, rather than the other way around. It kind of inflates my ego a little bit, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on this end of it, and it feels nice. But but yeah, I'm really passionate. Like I said, being in the Army, I got to meet so many unique people from so many different walks of life and hear, the stories. But we all, in the military, we all had very different stories about how we got to that point of making that decision to sign a piece of paper and sign your life away for, 5, 8 years. And just the different kind of conversations are really unique and really interesting. For instance, I joined because I wanted to go to college for free. And that was one of the big reasons why I joined. Whereas I've had other people who said, oh, my family, we're all military, so it was kind of expected of me. And so that's why I joined. And it's just, there are so many unique stories in that. And I wanted to continue that experience.
Yeah. So you reached out to me, and that's how I managed to be a guest on your show, which I am grateful for because it was one of my first guest appearances, probably the first guest appearance I had. You made me feel so at ease with how the whole process went. So I appreciate that you had like a little package of information to send to me so I knew what was going to happen. That was amazing. But then like connections and things, like you said, it's great when people come to you and ask to be on the show as well. And we've got a good story from the Sunshine Summit that's come out of that too, if you want to share that.
Yes, we do. And thank you, by the way, for mentioning the feeling that you got. It's been an experience. Like I said, I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and it has definitely been a learning experience the whole way. I think when I first started, I definitely was not at that level where I was able to really make people feel comfortable. I was not at the level where I was able to break the ice quickly, get to decent questions, And so it's been a learning experience, and I'm always learning. And I like to think that I'm always improving. I'm always going back and listening again, seeing what I could have done better and trying to apply that to future episodes. And as for the connections that we've made since the Sunshine Summit has started. Adam from Odd Dad Out reached out. Well, he had tweeted out that he had reviewed the show because he was going through and he was listening to all of the guests that were here.
Yeah.
And so I wake up and I see this tweet where it said Odd Dad Out tweeted about you, and I looked at it and it's like, and we talk about the podcasting couch, and I'm like, oh, I've made it. People are tweeting about me. And so I reached out to him. And, I said, hey, I listened. I really appreciate the shout out. I appreciate the nice words that you said. Would you like to come on the show? And he was immediate. He said, yes, let's do it. Let's do this. And so we were able to really quickly connect just from this. And, it's a show that I might not have ever seen before or heard before. And that goes back to the whole point of the podcast in the first place, which was to make these connections. And I got to be on the other side of it where, my whole goal has been, well, if you listen to this one show and then you come over to my show from that, here's 50, 60 other shows that you might not have heard of.
Yeah.
And you can get these little quick snippets, these little 1-hour shows, to get a flavor for what the host is, how they host their show, what their show is about, and their kind of little pitch. And then you can decide if you want to listen to it from that. And I'm able to, in this case, I was able to be on the other side of that, where, the Sunshine Summit has shown all these other shows that I've been able to go, okay, well, I want to listen to this one now, and I want to listen to that one over there because of just this one show was able to branch out to all these other shows.
That's awesome. I also want to say, and just slightly segue, but for our chat and for the other ones that you do have with people, you connect some amazing music with the people that you have on the show. Like, I had never heard of the song that you added for our episode, and it was relevant and it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, I so the process for that too is a tad bit tedious, to be honest. So what I do is I try to go to I go to all the different like independent music sites. I go to Reverb Nation, I go to Bandcamp, and all of these different kind of sites, and I just sit down for a couple hours and just listen to music, listen to all of the new releases from bands who maybe don't have a huge following. And then I just find songs that I enjoy listening to and songs that I really like. And I just reach out to the band and I just say, hey, this is the pitch. This is what the show is. This is what I want to do with your song. I'm going to have all your links in the description. It's a way to kind of leverage audiences. Everybody, a rising tide rises all boats. I think that's how that goes. And sometimes I get nothing back from them. I haven't gotten a no yet, which is nice, but
That's awesome.
I'll either get a yeah, we'd love that, that's great, or I just get radio silence, which is frustrating because it does take a lot of time to find the good stuff. There's a lot of music out there that's being recorded in not great settings. Yeah, environments, exactly. And so kind of weeding through all that can get a little tedious sometimes.
Yeah. But I just love that the aspect of it. You're bringing people with their stories, but you're also connecting music and helping and supporting those indie music makers as well. So it's an incredible concept, and I just loved it. I that was the most played part of that episode that I had with you, was I just went back and listened to the song.
Well, thank you. I try to, like I said, I'm always trying to find new music. I music has been a really passionate thing for me. I don't have a singing voice at all. I'm terrible at singing. So, I learned guitar at a young age, and music has always been a huge part of my life. My mom went to concerts while she was pregnant with me. So I've been like just engrossed in music since before I was born. I have tons of memories, of being in the back of my dad's car or the back of my mom's car with the music playing loud, and we're all, having a great time. So music is a very important thing to me. And I know that it can be, especially in the age of streaming, where it's so easy to go back to the stuff that you're familiar with, the stuff that you're comfortable with. I personally know that I have a hard time sometimes finding new music, because just branching out is it's a it's a task. It takes effort, it takes time. You have to weed through a lot of stuff that you might not enjoy. And so if I can find this music that I enjoy, I'm able to, one, again, it goes back to a kind of selfish thing as well, where one, I'm able to add new music that I enjoy listening to
Yeah.
to my playlists, and to my rotation of regular music that I listen to. And two, I'm able to share that with other people, and let them know, hey, this is a band that's really putting in the work. They're really working hard. They're putting out some great stuff. Here is a song that they think is representative of their sound, because that's the other thing that I do when I email them. I say, I listened to the album and I love it, and I'm wondering if you would send me a song that you think it best represents your band,
Yeah.
and I will play that song on the show. And that's what these musicians do. They send me, they say, this is the song that we want you to play. This is a song that we're really proud of and we want to show off to people. And so I get the opportunity to do that, and I really enjoy it.
That's fantastic. So you're naturally that way, where you are keen to reach out and make those connections regardless of whether you do get the radio silence or not?
So at first I was not.
Okay.
I was nervous because I think everybody kind of has a little bit of a fear of rejection.
Mhm.
It's never fun to get told no, and that has happened with some guests where I have reached out to some shows that were a little bit bigger than me, and they said, well, we don't have the time. It's not going to work out. We can't do it, and that's not a good feeling. It never is, but eventually, as I've continued to do this, I've been able to kind of move past that fear of rejection and kind of shift over to the idea of a philosophy, which is where I constantly am telling myself before I hit that send button, the worst that they can tell me is no. And that's already happened before. So how much worse can it be? Is someone going to email me and say, F off, your show is nothing. You're a waste of my time. No, nobody's like that. And, so the worst they're going to say is, no, thank you, or I don't have the time. And, once you get past that the first time, it's just like a Band-Aid. You rip it off real quick, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And
Yeah.
so at first I was not keen. Yeah, I was not keen to reach out to people. I did not like it. It was not a fun experience. It was kind of nerve-wracking every time. But as I've continued to do this show, I've gotten to a point now where I'm not so nervous about that kind of stuff, and I'm not hesitant to reach out to people.
From my perspective, I totally understand that. And for anyone starting out, we've sort of talked about this in the other streams as well, is that people who are introverted, or people who are just not brave, or just that nervousness about getting rejected and things like that, it can be an overwhelming and daunting thing, building an audience or finding people to connect with. But then I commented on something because someone had also said that I'd been on a lot of things, but it comes down to just asking. And I know that sounds simple, and it's also incredibly hard to do at the same time. But if you just ask, then you're on the way to finding out whether it will happen or not. And for you, just asking me, like, I kind of lost your promotional thing that you had put out there. So the fact that you actually made a direct contact with me by email meant that we were able to do it. And I love that you've built up the confidence and things as well, and it's grown.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, if I didn't grow that confidence, and if I didn't get over that fear of rejection, I wouldn't have a show. There's no way that this kind of thing is sustainable if you're constantly nervous to reach out, if you're
Yeah.
constantly second guessing whether or not you should ask somebody to come on the show. And so, getting over that hump was kind of probably the biggest thing for my show, was learning how to get over that sort of fear of rejection. And now that I have, it's the everything after that is easy. It's just kind of send, admittedly, a bit of a kind of canned reach out, the initial, because there is a lot of shows that don't necessarily have the time to reach or to contact me back. And so I will admit that my outgoing messages are not necessarily super duper personalized. The first message, it's a really generic, like, and it's a true statement, but it is a generic statement where I say, I've been listening to your show, I really enjoy it, I want you to come on, this is what we do, let me know. And then just the conversation goes from there.
I think all of that information up top is really helpful for someone, because if you're reaching out and they may not have heard from you, they can sort of discover what it is that you're doing and then work out whether it's for them from there. But also just like giving them a start and putting it to them. I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's I that little guest packet that I have that we've kind of talked about a little bit, which is for the listeners, what the guest packet is just like a list of some pointers, things like have some ideas that you want to talk about, and be ready to do that. Some kind of like heads up about your audio quality, just general like tips about how to make your interview go as smoothly as possible. And I will admit that was stolen from someone else who had posted about how when they have guests on, it's the guest packet that they send them. And I tweaked it a little bit. I changed a couple things, and I reached out to the guy and I said, "Hey, I love your guest packet. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be using it from now on." And they said, "That's totally fine. Feel free." And I wish I could remember what the show was right now, and I feel a little bit guilty for not remembering. But I was able to get that from them. Yeah, so I kind of stole that.
That's okay. And if they were happy for you to use it, that's amazing. And another theme that's gone through this Sunshine Summit so far is that the tight-knit community of podcasting. Have you found that?
Yes, I have. And it's actually, what's interesting is I've also kind of seen the small world that is podcasting as well. I had the guest that you just had on prior to me. If I read correctly, they're part of Blazing Caribou. Is that right?
Yes.
So I've actually had someone else from that network of podcasters on my show before, which I thought was kind of interesting. When I read that, I was like, it's such a small world. I had Rivers Rubin on the show. We talked about music for a while. And so it's just interesting how it is a very tight-knit community. A lot of podcasters are very willing to lift each other up and to help each other out when someone needs something. And at the same time, it's also, as much as everybody jokes about how everybody has a podcast, it really is a small world. It's a small community, as far as the hobbyists go, and as far as the people who, quite frankly, make it past their first year. It's really unfortunate to see, but a lot of these shows are not making it past that first year, because I think a lot of people, myself included, when I first started, do not realize the amount of work that goes into it, the amount of time that goes into it, the amount of dedication that you have to this show. If you are getting burnt out on your show, you're gonna quit. If you're just in podcasting to get that get that Audible money, bad news for you. It's not there. We just got we've got 2 patrons on our Patreon, and
Me too. Yay.
I am positively amazed, both of them. It was such a great feeling and such a rush when I get that email both times, saying, such and such is supporting your show. But that being said, and I don't want to sound necessarily ungrateful, and so I want to give a pretense of that before I say what I'm going to say, because I am extremely grateful. It's not a lot of money, and so if you don't have a passion for this medium, if you don't have a passion for doing whatever you're doing with your show, you're going to get burnt out quickly, because there is no real money in it, until you reach the astronomical tiers that some people are reaching.
My point on that is going to the passion part of it it's if you're passionate about it and you have a strong connection to your why of why you're doing it, then also having a support network. But what is in it for me is not the financial gain that I may or may not get out of it. It is the fact that I make an impact on people's lives and that I might support other people, and just having that, the social connection part of it, the ability to talk to someone else, and whether that be like this, and have a conversation on video, or just chat with someone in the audience and hear about what they're doing outside of podcasting, or what value they got from the podcast itself. So I know that Bandrew has said before that it helped him calm him down when he was at work one day listening to my show. I mean, that's huge to me that it had such a profound impact on someone. Paul Chomo also really enjoys it. There's like, and his show we just talked about before is having an impact on children. I think that outweighs to me. I mean, sure, you can sink a lot of money into podcasting and anything that you do because, I mean, you can buy gear. You could, like, the whole gear acquisition syndrome thing that's quite prevalent for some people, but you don't need to do that either. And you've got a way of doing that, and that works for you, and it sounds amazing. So, I mean, there's all sorts of different levels to it, and I think what I get out of it, and I love with the indie podcasting thing, is that we are, for the most part, hobby podcasters who are doing it out of the love and the fun of it, and we are making a difference on the world.
Right, and that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. I think maybe I could have put it more elegantly, but it was not to complain that there's no money in it, but rather to point out, you know, to anybody who is looking to it, you know, that that is something to keep in mind, that you do have to have a passion for what you're doing. And I think, you know, it is, and the other part of it is, you know, and I just talked about this with Adam, it is evident when someone has a passion in their show. People are able to pick up on fake, and people don't like fake. So if you're not really passionate about whatever your topic is or whatever your podcast is about, it will come through. Regardless of how good of an actor you are or how good you are at selling it, it will come through that you are not really passionate about this thing. And the audience will feed off of that and will not want to come back. So I think that is probably priority number one in podcasting, is to understand that you need to be doing this because it is something that you're passionate about. That has to be, you know, the number one reason why you want to do your podcast. The number one reason, the number two reason, and the number three reason is because I'm passionate about this. I want to share this with people.
Definitely. And what, outside of your passion, because that is really important, but what sort of support network do you have that helps also get you through?
So a big part of it is my wife. She listens to the show and gives me feedback on the show, which means a lot because I know that, you know, we've been married now for 5 years, and so we are far enough along in the relationship that I know that she's not gonna, you know, blow smoke up my butt about it. You know, if I blow an interview, she's gonna let me know, hey, you probably could have done this a little better, you could have done that a little better. I'm like, I appreciate that, because I think that that's one of the most important things. You know, if you don't have a support network that is willing to be honest with you and tell you what you need to do to improve, you never will improve. And so that's probably the biggest support that I have. And then aside from that, you know, there are just various smaller podcasters out there like myself. You know, we've all been able to kind of reach out to each other, chat with each other. I've joined a lot of Facebook groups of a lot of these shows. One of the Facebook groups that I really enjoy being a part of and interacting with their audience is there's a show called Your Fave is Problematic that I had on. We had a nice conversation, and they have a extremely tight-knit audience. It's one of the audiences that I am in awe of. Having done this show and interacting with so many other podcasts, I'm able to really get kind of a good look at everybody's audience. And that one is one of the most tight-knit communities that I have seen in podcasting. And it is a wonder of an audience. And I really enjoy, you know, interacting with those people, and kind of anytime that I'm like, hey, you know, because I'm trying to always better myself as well. And that's something that I'm able to do there. I'm like, hey, I'm wondering about this, or I have a question about that. And they're able to kind of help me out with understanding things that maybe not necessarily are relevant to podcasting per se, but are relevant to just everyday life. I'm able to reach out to these people and have an open conversation with these people about things that I might not understand. So that's one of the things is other people's audiences. I really enjoy interacting with them. And on that same note, kind of segueing over a little bit, I got about a week ago now, I got my first bad review, which was really fun. That was one that I think that was one of the hurdles that I was really afraid of. I was really nervous about, but now that I'm over it, it was not that big a deal. I'd interviewed a Twitch streamer, Stephen Bonnell. He goes by Destiny on Twitch. He does a lot of like political debates with people, as well as video game streaming, and his audience was extremely supportful as well. Supportive rather. Extremely supportive and really nice, but there were a few people who were not as nice, and it was nice to finally get that out of the way. And I think the exact words were something along the lines of uninteresting and unengaging questions, bad audio quality, I will not be coming back. And I was like, all right, that's fine. You're not going to please everybody,
Yeah.
I learned very, very early on that you need to go for what I call the 80-20 policy, where if you can please 80% of people, you're doing fantastic. There are like 10% of people that you're probably going to rub the wrong way, and there's 10% of people that are never going to be happy about anything. And so you need to just not worry about that 20% and just focus on the 80% that do enjoy the content that you're putting out.
Yeah. Bandrew from Podcasters just said that you've officially made it. Once you start getting hate or negative comments, you're on the right track.
It did feel that way too. It was like it was as weird as it sounds sometimes. I think it really was a milestone. It felt like, because I had only gotten, and this is gonna sound it sounds so gross to say this way, but I had only gotten positive feedback up to that point. But at the same time, I also didn't have as wide a reach as this particular show did. The show usually averages on high episodes, we average like 100 to 150. So it's a pretty modest show. It's a modest audience, but that episode in particular, within 24 hours, hit well over 2,500 downloads. So it was a big jump in listenership, and it was a big jump in engagement as well. And so I finally got the bad review.
And if we just put that in perspective, that's one out of all of those people. I think that's a pretty good,
yeah, I agree. I mean, there were a few people who were nicer about it, who said, I wasn't really crazy about this. But they weren't, it wasn't necessarily a bad review. But yeah, only one person was so upset with the show that they felt the need to be rude about it. So yeah, that's not too bad, I guess.
It's that whole minefield of being out there and the option for people to review and leave their feedback or leave a comment or whatever else is really interesting. And I haven't yet had complete negative feedback, and so it is in the back of my mind about how I will feel at that time. And I probably will take it personally because I'm one of those super sensitive people that it's going to happen. But at the same time, like, I kind of have to, for me anyway, I stick to the fact that my intentions are good, and what I'm trying to do is something helpful and inspiring and useful. And I know that I have made a good impact on the world already. So I will try and take my idea is that I will try and take whatever I can out of a negative feedback and use it. And if there is nothing there, then I just know that person is having a rant. And
and it's like we just talked about, with how passionate you have to be for the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I took that bad feedback and just was able to, just roll it off my back like water on a duck. It did. It was like, oh, that kind of hurts my feelings a little bit because, with all of our shows, this is our baby, this is something that we're working really hard on to nurture and grow. And having that level of negativity to an extent at first, like when you first read it, it doesn't feel good. It sucked. But, now that I'm a little bit more removed from it. Like it within like 6 hours or so, I was able to kind of go, okay, well, that's whatever, and kind of reach back out to the guy and say, what, I'm sorry to hear that. If you have any pointers for me, let me know. But that guy ended up deleting his account because so many people had downvoted him. So I guess I won in the end.
And there's a community for you. I mean, if
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it's like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you say, and it is about accepting it too, because like we can't ignore the feelings that we have. They're important and we do feel them. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so those negative reviews and that negative, that sort of any kind of negativity that you get towards the show, I think you can go one of two directions with it, where you can either take that and kind of internalize it and sort of stress over it, or you can take that and go, well, how can I improve from this then? And if you treat it no differently than listening back to an episode of your own show and critiquing it yourself, if you treat it that same way, then it can only make you better, I guess.
Yeah. And it is good having that someone in your corner. Like, it's really awesome that you have your wife who is your biggest supporter. And it's something that I know that for me is my story is a little different, in that I sort of didn't tell too many people when I was doing podcasting because I was too nervous to share that. And my support has come from the podcast community itself and the connections that I've made since I started, and one or two that I had before that. So wherever you find them, and wherever you find an audience that sort of aligns with you and that you feel that you enjoy being a part of and wanting to contribute to, I think that's incredible.
Right. And it is interesting. I think, and I don't think it's necessarily a unique story. Hearing, I hear a lot of people who are like, oh, I have my real life friends and my podcast friends, and they're very separate and they stay separate. We're coming up on episode 44 right now, I believe. And it is the first time that I've actually had someone that I've known personally in life on the show. My buddy Max Cannon, he makes films. And so I finally was able to raise the funds to get a second microphone and get a little setup going. And it's probably not, the episode is definitely not up on quality on par with what I usually put out, because I'm, learning a whole new recording process. But it was really fun and a really different experience to have somebody in studio,
Cool.
sitting right across from me and having this conversation rather than through the computer screen. So it was a really different experience, and it was really fun. And, it's something that I want to try to do more often.
Yeah.
But so I'm just now, over a year in, just starting to let my podcast kind of bleed into real life, as you would say.
Yeah. I've my thing was a confidence thing, but when I've plucked up the confidence now to properly tell someone, and I don't sort of toot my own horn because I can't do that, but I if someone asks or and things, I will share what's happening with it, and it's fun celebrating that with someone who is right here with you. But on the flip side of that, when that's not possible, there are a bunch of people out there who are willing to celebrate, because you're all here, and I really appreciate everyone who's come by the live chat today, as well as you for being part of the Sunshine Summer and making that original connection with me in the first place.
Yeah, of course. And it has been, an absolute joy. And over this last year and a half, I've gotten to make so many unique connections with people, and meet so many, like we said at the beginning, meet so many unique people and hear so many unique stories. And, it's something that I'm really looking forward to. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep doing this for, but, hopefully as long as possible. Because it really has, gotten me in a place where I'm able to meet these people and talk to these people and learn these people's stories. And there have been a few times where I've gotten to reach out to there are shows that I listened to before I started podcasting, and so I think in a sort of way I look at those podcasts as like those are the celebrity podcasts because those were shows that I listened to before I was really ingrained in this whole thing too. And so anytime that I'm able to get them to come on, it feels like I get like a little starstruck and a little giddy about those. And those have been fun. And, you know, I've been able to make these connections with people where after the show is over, you know, sometimes the show is over and we go separate ways and that's it. You know, there's over 50 guests by this point.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have lasting conversations with everybody. But there have also been shows where we finish the show and I'm just saying, I wish we could have gone for another 2-3 hours. And so those ones, you know, I continue to reach out to those people. We continue to have conversations, we continue to talk. And I think I'm just now getting to the point where the show has been going long enough that I feel comfortable bringing people back onto the show a second time.
Awesome.
And so I'm really excited about that. You know, that's not something that I wanted to do at first because, you know, you don't want to have the same guest 2 times in a year in a show where the whole point is to see new content and hear these stories from all these different people. If you got the same person coming back 2-3 times, people are going to lose interest really quickly because your concept is not what you're actually doing. And so it's really exciting to finally be able to bring that back and have these conversations with these people again.
Because over time things change as well, and we all grow and we have more experiences that we can draw on and share. I have to say I'm the oddball in that one because I just had Jillian and Elisa on my podcast and now they're on the Sunshine Summit. So I've kind of gone against the grain on that one. But yeah.
I think that might be a little different because this is a really unique thing. You know, I think this is different than just a regular, you know, or a regular podcast episode.
It's an
so I would say, yeah, so I would say that's a little different than just like, oh, I had them on the show and then I had them on the show again. So I'd say it's a little different.
Yeah. And what was great about the podcast episode anyway was that we could have it sort of tailored to a specific thing, and then this session here, these live streams, is an open conversation, whatever goes, you know, and within reason.
Yeah, right.
But along the lines of a celebration, and it's not as sort of formal as a podcast episode, and that's what I was really excited for the Sunshine Summit.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this, being on the other side of the kind of conversation here. You know, I've gotten so used to
being the host.
Yeah, being the host, driving the conversation, kind of prepping everything beforehand, and being really, you know, as ready as I can be for the show. And then, you know, every episode is nerve-wracking. You know, despite the fact that I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with doing the show, I'm still not at a place where it's second nature yet, you know, which I'm happy for at the same time. You know, I don't want to reach a point where I'm just going through the motions.
Yeah.
You know, and so on one hand, it's like I'd like to reach a point where I could go through the motions, because I feel like at that point I've reached a point where I'm really comfortable doing this. But at the same time, like I said, I don't want to lose that passion either for this whole thing. So it's a little, I guess it's a little bit of a balancing act that I'm going to have to try to do if I can ever get to that point where I'm really comfortable with this.
I think the nervousness drives a little bit of motivation as well, but also it's a spark, and you can bounce off that and people enjoy that, and it adds a little bit something extra. And I mean, sure, it would be good to feel confident so that everything kind of went a little bit more smoothly, perhaps.
Yeah.
And there weren't awkward silences where I forget what I want to say and fun stuff like that. But yeah, I think I didn't sleep too much before the Sunshine Summit, if we're completely honest, because I was quite nervous. But that it's because I wanted to make something awesome, and I wanted to do my very best, and that's what helped make this what it is.
Yeah, and you know, it like I said, it's important to I think it's important to have kind of those butterflies and those jitters, because I think it's kind of a sign that you care. If you're, I think you can equate it to a job, where if you're coming into work every day and you're not the least bit excited, you're just coming in to turn your brain off, do whatever you're supposed to do for 8 to 10 hours, and then go home. That's no way to live. And so why would we want to subject ourselves not only to work like that, but then a hobby like that too? That's not a hobby at that point. That's a job as well,
Mm.
So I think that those nerves are sort of a way to go, I'm still really excited about this, to the point where I want to do this the best way that I possibly can, rather than just, well, we're going to do this. I think it'll go okay, but we'll find out when we get in here.
Yeah. I kind of, hopefully it hasn't felt like we've winged it too much for this one.
I don't think so. I don't think it feels that way. I think I like to think, I guess, and I said this on the first episode of my show, and I still like to pepper it in every once in a while. I'm no Terry Gross, that's for sure. I do not have the kind of interviewing chops of someone like that, and I like to think that I've gotten to a place where I'm a little bit more comfortable with being in the driver's seat. And so I like to think that I've also gotten to a point where I'm able to kind of, I guess, notice or recognize good interviewing. And I felt like this went really well.
I think it comes down to experience, and I don't have a whole lot of experience, so I really appreciate that you have the experience to be able to provide, and everybody else who's been a guest so far as well have been providing incredible conversation and lifting me up when I've struggled too. So I really appreciate you all.
Well, like I said, it really is a learning experience. You go back to my first couple episodes, and I've done that. The first few episodes, I was so nervous about interviewing that I wrote down every question that I had, and I wrote down this huge long list of questions. So I'm like, well, I have to make sure that I have enough stuff that I can fill an hour of time. And it was, not good. It was very like, question, long answer, next question, answer, rather than, going, well, based off of that answer, how can I kind of move that into another direction? And I like to think that I've gotten a lot better at that sort of natural flow of things, but it was definitely a learning experience. Like I said, the first probably 4 or 5 months, it was not that good. And I always joke about, anybody who's thinking about starting a show, do it for like 3 months and don't publish it, and then start doing your show, because by then you'll work out a lot of the kinks of things that you'll find out, what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Yeah, just going back to something else that was kind of in the chat from Stargate Pioneer, he said at some point all of our podcasting careers come to a close. I think the other thing is not getting too hung up on it and the thinking that this one thing is going to be the be all and end all, because your interest in things might change and you might learn different skills, and then you might find you want to do a whole other different project. But the experience that you've built up before will lend itself to the new project that you want to take on.
Right, and that ties exactly into what we talked about at the beginning. I I started, doing a completely different show, and then it became such a time sink and so difficult that I was starting to lose passion in it. And rather than trying to keep going with something that I was not passionate about, and I could tell from my listenership, slowly declining, they were no longer passionate about it. Rather than trying to keep that going, I said, well, all right, let's close up shop and let's move on to the next thing. And that's what I did. And, this show now has far outlived that one. And I don't feel that passion going away. It does not feel like a chore to sit down and turn the microphone on. And so I think as long as I've got that, I think I'm still going to go. So I can definitely understand that sentiment. And it's definitely spot on, that we should not beat a dead horse, I guess. If something's ready to end, let it end. Otherwise, you become, like your favorite band that kept going for a little bit too long, and then stuff got bad. I always say I'm very glad that, like, for instance, I'm glad that the White Stripes stopped making music before they had time to get bad, because now they'll only have good stuff in their catalog. And so I think it's the same thing with your shows. When it's ready to end, let it end. That way you can end on a good note.
Yeah. And be flexible with it, and be flexible with yourself. Another thing that is important is making sure you look after yourself, that you can do this, because it is a time heavy and a passion thing that can be very draining and things. But if you take the time to look after yourself and your family, because they were there before podcasting, they'll be there after podcasting, and to look after and love on those things, that's important. And just another thing, Stargate said, if you don't publish for 3 months, you'll never receive any feedback. I think you can start and get practice with something, but yeah, if you do put it out there, like it's a worry or something that might make you nervous putting it out there, and that's what a lot of people struggle with, is launching to start with. And the other thing is if you actually go and just do it, you'll then know, and then not being hung up if it doesn't become the lifelong thing that you do, because it could lead to something else. So
yeah. I mean, as you know, this is mostly a joke. But I think, I think it just goes to show, like, and I think this is with most shows. If you look at any of these shows, anybody shows, their beginning is especially if they've been going for a while. If you go back to their beginnings, it's radically different feel. It's a radically different show. And I think that's equal parts feedback and equal parts just kind of getting comfortable on the microphone. This is not natural per se. It doesn't always feel natural. It's a conversation that we're having, but there's just one layer in between that makes it just a little bit off feeling from a normal face-to-face conversation. But I think, the more that you get used to doing this, the less that layer is there, until it does feel like just a face-to-face conversation, all the way to the point where, most of my episodes now I record without video even. And that was difficult at first, because not being able to, see expressions on faces and get that kind of feedback was really difficult, because it feels weird. It's like it becomes a phone conversation with a stranger from another place, with this space in between. And so there's so many humps to get over before you can get comfortable with that. But just I think, growth is good.
It is good, and it's a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just want to, we're coming up to the top of the hour, but I have really loved catching up with you, because it's been a little while since we were in touch, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and how they might be able to reach out if they want to be a guest on the Podcasting Couch?
Of course, sure. So the website is the best place to reach out. It's thepodcastingcouch.com. And all the tabs there are pretty self-explanatory. If anybody's interested in coming on the show, I don't say no ever. So unless you're recording on maybe like a flip phone, I might say, well, come back to me when your quality gets a little bit better, but probably not even then. But so if you're interested in reaching out, it's thepodcastingcouch.com/contact, and then just fill out the contact form there. Twitter, I'm on quite a bit. I don't post as much as I should, but I like to think I'm pretty good at getting back to people with Twitter. And then the podcastingcouch.com also has, every links to the feed everywhere there. Same as everybody else's podcast. It's, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, everywhere where you get podcasts.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for today. Thank you to everybody who came by the live chat. We had Susie Varmints, Paul Chomo, Stargate Pioneer. We had Banjo. We had the Eldest Bro. And who else? Lots of people. Thank you so much for coming by. I look forward to seeing the next episodes that come out and who's going to be on your show in the future. I can't wait to follow that journey.
Awesome. And thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. And like I said, this was really fun being on the other side of it. I haven't gotten to have that experience yet, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thank you for saying yes. See you next time.
See ya.
Bye. That was a lot of fun. Thank you again to Chris for being here. And yeah, the link below on the picture, I'm not sure, but that should take you to Chris's website as well. It's one that I copied over. And yeah, definitely check it out. Check out all the past episodes that he's done with his other amazing guests that he's had, and have a listen to the music that he includes in those episodes, because I think that feature is one that I find really interesting and incredibly supportive as well, that he's supporting those in the music industry who don't have a big following as well. Yeah. That wraps up the Sunshine Summit for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Odd Dad Out, Adam Higgins from that. Oh, we also had Lindsay and Adam before earlier in the other stream, but I'm going to chat with both of them tomorrow. So Adam Higgins is first, and then straight after we'll be chatting with Perry and Lindsay Johnson from Hello Life, WTF, and the Pod Stuff. Can't wait to see you there.